focusing on as well this idea that maybe Brussels was, as I said, a preview to coming attractions, that many more attacks are planned, as we're getting indications ISIS might have released hundreds of planned attackers throughout Europe. Former Homeland Security Secretary Tom Ridge with us now. Secretary, good to have you.
Neil.
Jay Johnson, the President of Homeland Security Secretary, says he does not see any legitimate current threat here in the U.S. What do you think of that?
Well, I think it's probably based upon the complete absence of specific information. But I don't think under the circumstances after San Bernardino, 2 attacks in Paris, a couple of attacks over the past few years, and the most recent one in Brussels, that anybody associated with Homeland Security or the security of this country is doing anything other than at a heightened level of readiness and vigilance. You must be at this time. And frankly, since it's a global scourge, notwithstanding President Obama saying it's not an existential threat, whatever that means, it is a clear and present danger to American interest and American citizens, not only here but overseas.
You know, this idea of banning out so many operatives, so many attackers throughout Europe, do you think that is a credible, a real threat? And then the intent would be, what, multiple Brussels?
Well, the first I've heard of this press report, I thought there was probably a little bit of hyperbole associated with it. And so whether it's 40 or 400, the one thing we've learned over the past couple of years is that there is a network of enablers embedded throughout Europe, France, Germany, Belgium, and no matter how many they would release, whatever that number is, they don't operate in a vacuum. They don't operate by themselves. So I'm not as concerned about the number as I am about, regardless of the number, they've already got an infrastructure pretty well situated throughout Europe. And for that reason, I think you're going to see Europe in a heightened state of vigilance for a long, long time.
What is your understanding of how many you need to pull off an attack? In Paris, it seems 6 to a dozen. Here, maybe 6, could be a dozen if there is evidence of accomplices. But again, that is in keeping with 9/11, where it was little more than 12 to 16 guys. What is that about?
Well, I think you said it quite accurately, Neil. We focus on the suicide bombers, but their ability to secure everything they need in order to build the bombs. There's a technical capacity there. As we found out in Brussels, there were probably members of the community providing safe haven for the individual they finally apprehended. So while we focus on the individual bombers or attackers, these barbarians that murder innocents, there is a network probably 3-4x larger than the attackers involved in complicit as conspirators in advancing their jihadist cause.
You got to wonder if they have that many around, or that is that intent. Now evidence that maybe these attackers were planning to make this an Easter Monday attack, when of course Europe celebrates that day as Easter. All stores, businesses are closed. There would be more people out on the street, presumably more people at major thoroughfares, transportation centers, airports, train stations. So that they really wanted a high body count. They got a significant count, being as it is yesterday. But what do you make of that, and that this is all timed to get the crowds when the crowds are there?
Well, these barbarians are going to try to maximize the impact of their actions. And airports, and as we've seen in the past, public transportation facilities, passengers packed in, many times like sardines, going from stop A to B. It's a location that guarantees them a maximum number of casualties. But I also think that, again, there may be a deviation to this plan, but it's unlikely. They may have expedited this to move it quicker based on the apprehension of that individual. But normally they'll attack, they'll move when they are ready to move and when they think they can maximize the impact of their murderous assault. So I guess as I look back at this, what transpired, we'll always wonder whether or not the news associated with the apprehension of the individual in Brussels and that he was revealing a lot of information, it may have expedited it in the sense that, well, our colleague's been captured, he's not being silent, and we better move expeditiously in order to assault and bring this assault to fruition. That might have expedited it, but normally they're going to move when they're ready to move at the target that there's been preliminary reconnaissance, they know they can maximize the casualties.
Do you think, as some have feared, that this is beyond, as the President was saying today, targeting and continuing the fight against ISIS at its core, root them out in Syria, Iraq, wherever, because they are everywhere. There are sleeper cells everywhere. They're fanning out hundreds of these guys in Europe, that now this is beyond just getting them in a single area?
Well, I think, again, I was very disappointed in the President's brief statement about the attack. The first place you need to strike is the sanctuary arenas. There are areas in Syria and Iraq. We know for a fact that, again, it's not revisionist history, but if we'd have eliminated Assad some time ago, if we'd have kept some troops in Iraq, and frankly, if the President would have acted as previous presidents have done and built an international coalition of both air and ground forces, including those from the Muslim countries, you eliminate the sanctuary, you eliminate the training grounds, it becomes much more difficult for them to operate. Neil, I truly believe that we are going to deal with the scourge of global jihadism, these radical Islamicists, it's a permanent condition of the world. And we just have to accept that, but you have to go about it much more aggressively to root out the sanctuaries and to deal with so many other aspects in dealing with these terrorist group, and the notion that, well, just they're everywhere and we can't do too much about it. It's almost like a fait accompli. We're going to move in incremental. No, we can't move incrementally in Syria. We can't move incrementally in Iraq. They need to be rooted out, and hopefully the next president will provide the international leadership that American presidents have historically done, and our friends and allies historically look to us to provide that leadership.
Tom Ridge, thank you very much.
Thank you, Neil.